I'm recording it now. See that light?
That light.
It says record.
It says recording. Okay,
it's recording, and it's got 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds. It's recording. We're good.
We both see it and can verify. Make eye contact. Affirmative.
It is affirmative. Affirmative.
I like affirmative. Much more positive.
Affirmative.
Define the contours?
Duh. I didn't watch like all of it, but I think I watched the good like first 2 seasons.
Yeah, I only watched the first 2 seasons. All right, folks. Hello.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome back to the Crownening.
Crownening.
This is episode 3.
Episode 3, and the title of our episode today is Windsor. Let me get the headphones out.
So in part 2, yeah, while you do that.
Do you want to do a quick recap?
Yes. So as a recap, so in part 2, the king dies. He spends his last days with his family and his daughter, and he dies asleep in his bed.
Much earlier than anyone anticipated.
And when he dies, Elizabeth and Philip are basically on this kind of like second honeymoon tour in Kenya. Yes, visiting at a wildlife sanctuary, having an absolutely romantic time. And they can't get a hold of her.
Like that.
Yeah.
But like.
So the government can't get a hold of her. They're trying and trying and trying, and basically they're trying to like break the news to her before the news gets broken by the actual news. Oh, you're not recording. Hold on. You're not plugged in.
Oh. Guys, this episode was almost cursed.
I swear to God, we've been working so hard. Oh my God.
You caught it early. Thank you. I was so...
Oh, that was so close.
At least we got your half.
Oh my God.
They probably heard me on your half. We'll just figure that out.
I'm just so happy that I saw it and was like...
I'm so happy you saw it because I was not seeing it.
Oh my God.
Okay. The episode is Windsor.
Welcome to the Crownening.
The Crownening.
We are covering episode 3 called Windsor. Last time on the Crownening, we went over episode 2, wherein the king dies in his sleep. He has had some nice last days with his family. Elizabeth and Philip are off on their international tour of colonialism, and when the news breaks that the king has died, nobody can get a hold of her, and basically, like, it takes a really long time to get to now the queen, that she is now the queen. And the very end of the episode, she comes in and her sister and her mother curtsy to her before they are actually able to give her familial, affections.
Yes. Stark difference from episode 1.
Where she has to curtsy to her mother and her grandmother.
Yes.
So everyone curtsies to her, and the very last shot, it is a very long, intense shot of Elizabeth looking at Queen Mary.
And Queen Mary looking back.
And it is like right after the death. So we're going to go into episode 3, and obviously lots of spoilers. We are going to take it scene by scene and just talk about this historical fiction. So the events that happen and the timeline it happens in, those are factual, but a lot of these conversations are definitely written for dramatic effect.
Yes.
However, apparently a lot of it has been known to be fairly accurate. Fairly close to what actually happened.
Believe. Yeah, we don't know for sure, though.
These are a lot of... The people that wrote this are very educated on British history, so they have tried really hard to...
Try to be as close.
Yeah.
Yeah, they read a lot of accounts, I believe. All right. Dun-dun. Everything's still working. All right,
so December 10th, 1936.
All right, so we're looking at Elizabeth and Margaret as young girls riding their bikes through the grounds of the castle they grew up at. Don't know which one this is.
Their little corgis are following after them.
Oh, yeah, they were big fans of the corgi.
Mm-hmm. Gina, Karina, and Ella. That's at least 3 corgis that they've got that are running around with them.
What cool names for doggies.
And we open on, and then we go into the library scene. of a man
King
and
Edward
presumably his
VIII.
wife. Yeah, so what we find out is King Edward.
Yes.
And his wife.
Oh, there's Queen Mother Mary.
And he is signing these papers, basically.
Big newspapers.
He's written these letters.
Yes.
And they're getting ready for a broadcast.
Yes.
And Queen Mary is walking through the halls, and she pissed.
Yeah, she's not stoked on this.
Yeah.
She has a very stern look about her, and now she is entering this office that we see the couple in. It's her son, King Edward VIII, and his soon-to-be fiancé,
I think it's
Wallis Simpson.
Yeah.
And he is signing the abdication papers. And she's really upset. She is not happy about it.
So she's coming in and she's basically imploring this man who was king but is no longer king, please don't do this. And he's like, my people deserve to hear from me. And she's like, they're not your people anymore. You gave up the crown. This is obviously her son, who has very recently given up his position as crown. He's abdicated his throne and has now put Albert in a position, Albie, in a position of
Unforeseen position
of now becoming king.
Yeah, they did not expect that.
So it went from Elizabeth and Margaret were just going to be like, little duchesses, and they were going to be pretty much nobodies in a royal family. They were just going to be able to be these country women.
Yeah, live a life of leisure.
Yeah, and marry a simple royal and kind of live a life in the shadows.
Simple
but
royal.
very privileged, to becoming now the future royal, like the future Queen of England.
Yeah. And at this time, he's like giving a broadcast speech, letting people know he's no longer king. And it's kind of being played over footage of the girls kind of getting the news.
Yeah, the girls are running through the halls of the house without a care in the world, while this man is basically saying, like, I gave up the crown for the woman that I love.
Sweet.
I want to assure you that I have every faith in my brother's ability to do the job. But I wanted to at least give my own farewell, basically. This is a very sad scene.
Yeah.
Cookies
Albie is so concerned.
Cookie's so sad.
Yes.
Sorry, not Albie, Birdie.
Birdie.
Albert, Birdie.
Yeah, I don't know why I want to call him Albie.
Now he's King George, though.
Yes, King George.
And this is basically a scene of the family all listening to the same radio thing that says, now he's going to be king. And Elizabeth just stares at her father, and he stares back at her.
She can tell he's not happy about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of weight in this visual exchange between the two of them. Basically, I think he immediately, because of the king he was, because of the way that he led, I would like to think that his thought immediately was of her future, not of his own. Like
not only what's being put on him,
like he already knows he's
and
fucked
now
either. but now my daughter, who was supposed to be a nice nobody,
a nice duchess with a good life,
now she is gonna have to do this.
Yeah. Is she going to be prepared? How can I, a man who was never prepared for this, how do I prepare my daughter?
And he had a very different education himself from the one that she ended up having because of that.
Yeah.
He wanted to give her better than he got himself because he wasn't prepared for it.
Right.
And
even that wasn't enough.
Exactly. As we will see.
As we will find. But yeah, I mean, it's what can you do when you yourself are unprepared as a parent for something that could crush you, and then now you know it's automatically going to be passed to your daughter.
Yeah.
All right. So we're zooming in on Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth now, in her bed, just kind of sleeping. She's waking up.
The moment is just this private little morning cuddle between Elizabeth and Philip, and basically it's like kind of a mental preparation, getting ready for the day. And she's walking through, she's got all of her morning clothes on, but she knows it's going to be a big day, and she just needed a moment to be comforted. And he's still dealing with the house.
Yeah.
So he basically sends her off to go and do her queenly duties now.
Yeah. He did a good job at the house, by the way.
Pardon?
Look at the house. He did a good job.
It looks great.
Yeah. Good on you, house husband.
And he says, this is the first proper home he's ever had, so he's going to take care of it.
Aw.
He's got to do the thing.
That's sweet.
And when I say he's got to do the thing, he's got to tell other people to do the thing.
Yeah. I mean, he's
got
the
a
manager.
lot of other people working, actually doing the work. He's just telling them what to do. So she leaves Clarence house and she goes over to, she goes up to Buckingham.
A little anxious, I see. Twisting her rings around. It's a big day. She's got her mourning veil on.
I think that's a tick that they really highlight a lot in the show, is when she's nervous, she fiddles with her ring.
Was doing it.
I think he does that too, yeah.
You're right. What an intimidating building Buckingham Palace is. It's huge.
I know. And then like going in for the first time knowing I'm in charge of this fucker now. Not only that, but this is a representation of the entire sovereignty that I rule.
And she's also in charge of the livelihoods of all the people who work in there as well.
She's got to make sure that every decision she makes from here on out is not only the best decision for the country, but also for the people within those walls.
I would crack so hard under the pressure.
Oh, totally.
Oh, it's Tommy Lassell.
So Tommy Lassells is walking her through the halls, and he's like, let's go through the orders of the day, the papers that we need to deal with. Yeah. And she's like, I need some time. And he goes, well, it'll slow down once everything settles down.
Right. We'll just do the manageable ones for now.
Yeah. But like once you live here, it'll be easier to go through these as they come.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Oh, Queen.
And she walks in on
Queen Mothers.
She walks in on a seating arrangement meeting that has gotten very tense. Do you want to pause this? We can talk about kind of the underpinnings.
Let's talk about the context of what she's walking into.
And we will learn more about this as the episode goes on.
Yes.
But since we're just going to pause and kind of bring attention to it.
Yeah.
So
I could use a good refresher.
So Cookie.
I love that we call her Cookie.
Cookie. And we learn here in this episode why she's called Cookie.
Oh, I forgot that is this episode.
Yes. So Cookie and Queen Mary, the widowed Queen Mother, and then now
Queen Grandmother,
the newly widowed Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth.
Oh wait, I had it backwards.
God. Queen Elizabeth, Queen Cookie.
Yeah, call her Queen Cookie.
Queen Cookie and then Queen Mary are in a meeting where they're doing seating arrangements for what will be the funeral. And Queen Elizabeth walks in and she's like, okay, what is going on?
Right, like, I have only just arrived. Why are you starting without me?
Well, no, not even that.
Oh, no?
They were already having the meeting. She's not interrupting anything, but they're saying she walks in on this moment, this question of like, did he come alone? And they said yes, and he said, well, that's something. So we're walking into this moment that we're about to be explained is King Albert's brother, so Bertie's brother, is coming in from France. He and his wife have long lived in luxury
exile,
down there, but basically exile. They've left the country because he wanted to be with his wife, and he lived away from the nation that he led so that he could do that.
Yes.
And there was a lot of symbolic, like, weight with his decision, and he made sure that everybody knew he was leaving the throne to be with the woman that he loved,
because the throne would not allow him, the king, to marry
the woman
2 or 3 times divorced, and some of
two times divorced,
and her exes were still alive, or at least one of them was.
So she'd been married and divorced a couple times, and her ex-husbands were still kicking, and he wanted to marry her, and basically the rules of the day said that he couldn't marry the woman he loved because that's basically against like every rule. You can't marry a divorcee, you can't marry a commoner, you can't marry this and marry that. Ridiculous rules in the 20th century where this kind of shit happens, but it was as is tradition, so it really didn't matter. They're very upset that he has come to the funeral.
No one wants to see him.
Really, but the way that Queen Mary is kind of like showing a little bit of relief is basically because, well, at least he didn't bring his wife, which he didn't bring her, and her is the reason that he's not the king anymore. Her is the woman that he loves, and her is like derailed everyone's lives because her came into the picture. Yeah. So everyone hates her.
Yeah, Cookie especially hates her now.
Cookie especially hates her.
And him, because she believes that they contributed to her husband's death.
Yeah.
The stress of
his job led to this horrendous and horribly slow death.
Yeah.
And the misery that he lived as being king. He did not like being king. He was beloved, but he didn't enjoy it.
No. He knew the job sucked. He hated the job, but he knew how to get through it.
Yes. Which I think is what made him really good at it.
Yeah.
He didn't want the throne. It was put upon him, and he knew the weight of it.
And he would go straight to the stuff that they didn't want him to know, the hard stuff that they didn't want him to weigh in on.
Which made a lot of difference because he was paying attention to the little things that all added up.
Yeah. Now, again, we are two Americans, so we don't know the full extent of his reign.
But we can talk about it.
But we're talking about the show.
Yeah. And what we saw was the beginning of the end, but also he had been ruling for quite some time as this beloved king. Even though a monarch really doesn't do a whole lot of day-to-day stuff, but he was trying to help the government make good decisions on the behalf of the people.
Exactly.
So they're trying to talk about where
to put the old king.
The old king is going to sit in order of the funeral, and basically Cookie is like, "Can you take him outside? Like, is that too far?"
God, she's so mean.
Cookie really is such sass.
Oh, but she is. I love and hate her at the same time.
I know she holds a grudge too.
Yes, she does. So,
and the mom and Queen Mary is none too happy to see her son anyway because she thinks that he basically effectively killed her other son.
Yeah, she and Cookie can agree on that.
Yeah. So Queen Elizabeth suggests that he go and sit next to Winston Churchill. He's like, they got together in the war. They got along, and Cookie comes in and she goes, "Crybaby." And Elizabeth's like, what? And she goes, that's what he calls Winston. He has cruel little nicknames for all of us.
Do you want to know yours?
She says, no. He goes, Shirley Temple. Yeah. Because Cookie wants to stir the pot. Yeah. You could have just shut your mouth, but no. You got to tell her what her nickname is.
Yeah. So we're looking now at the old king, the former king, on his way via boat.
Yeah.
And he is arriving, and there's a lot of people there to see him. I mean, do you think he's popular with the people?
He never got as far as the coronation.
No, he didn't.
So he didn't have a lot of time, but it is a big deal that he's coming back into the country because he's been such a long time gone.
Yes, he did. So now he's arrived. He's talking and basically presenting a statement towards the press.
Yeah. And he's saying, like, I'm very sorry to hear, my heart goes out to the widowed Queen Mother and also to the Queen Elizabeth and my mother, Queen Mary, in their grief. And he comes to the castle and is having an audience with his mom, who is smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, it seems like the smoking habit was picked up along...
Yeah, it's a family thing, for sure.
It's a family thing. Now, isn't it interesting the parallels these days with Harry and Meghan? Married a divorcee whose ex is alive.
Well, and we're about to see it play out as well in other ways.
Left the royal working family members, the senior working royals.
You have to kind of abdicate the titles, and you have to live
outside the country.
Outside the country, yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll go into that in a future episode where
I think we could do like a nice little breakdown episode where we can
talk about those rules.
That's a good idea. All right, so the former king has made it to Buckingham Palace, and he is now being presented to his mother.
And he's called the Duke of Windsor.
The Duke of Windsor, yes.
Yes, which is why I believe why the episode's called Windsor. Yeah. But also that's their family name.
That is true. Such a cold and very formal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
He has to bow to her before he can... greet her as a mom.
Yeah.
And she is being super withholding. Cold.
Poor Bertie.
So he's like, he was so young, and the mom's like, well, we can only be happy that he had as long as he did. He was thoughtful and caring. He was an angel.
Oh, yeah. The mom is praising George or Albert.
Yes, she loved Albert. I think she loved Albert probably more than
definitely after Edward's abdication.
Edward. Yeah. That's his name, Edward.
I don't know his first name, but his regal name was Edward.
Okay.
I don't remember if his first name.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I'll look it up.
You'd be wise not. So he's basically saying, like, you've been in our thoughts and prayers, and she gets upset. She's like, you'd be wise not to mention that woman.
Yeah, you do not say the WS word here.
And she's like, if you want to, keep any sort of respect with your family, you would be wise to never speak of this woman while you're here, basically.
Yeah.
And so now we're with the queen, and she's having to deal with state papers. And she's like, I wish this could have waited maybe until after the funeral. And Tommy's like, I'm sorry, we can't wait. We've got to actually deal with this. So she takes the key, and she opens up her very own box.
Oh, her first red box.
The first red box for the queen. And
let's see.
Tommy Lascelles is taking her through each little thing and explaining how the boxes work and what she needs to be paying attention to and how to read these forms.
Just kind of like helping her through her first day.
Yes. And he is doing a very good job of explaining things step by step.
Yeah. He's done this patiently. He's been with the family for a really long time.
I think the fourth monarch that monarch that he has worked with.
So he would have had to have been around for George V.
Yeah, he worked
Edward
with their dad,
VIII.
and then he worked with both the brothers, and then he worked with Elizabeth.
Oh shit, that's right. They're talking. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, this is great.
So our next scene opens up with Elizabeth getting ready for her first meeting with Prime Minister Winston Churchill. And if you would like to tell us what Prince Philip says once he sees that he's arrived. Philip is a quick wit and such an asshole in the best way possible.
Oh my God.
He's written this way anyway.
Of course.
He was known to be funny.
The whole show, though, is also like very much they see this family in a certain type of way, and they definitely have people that they like, and they have the people that are the villains of the story.
Yeah.
So Winston Churchill is visiting, and he's about to have his first audience with the Queen, and Philip. They're like, Winston Churchill's here, your Majesty. And Philip's like, don't rush, darling. Like, it'll take him an hour to get up to the door. And then it'll take him another hour to get through the damn thing. Because Winston was known as a very large man, a very slow man with his little cane.
Yes, an impending presence physically and verbally. Yes. Yeah, Philip, very well represented. His humor is supposed to have been very, very sharp.
Yeah.
Very sharp. That's the other reason it's named Windsor.
Philip's giving Elizabeth like basically last minute advice of like, remember to talk about these things with Winston. Yeah. So there's two specific things that he wants. He wants to make sure that the kids get to keep the name Mountbatten. And what was the other one? They get to stay at Clarence House instead of having to live at Buckingham Palace.
That they don't move to Buckingham Palace.
He worked so hard on Clarence House, so he wants to stay living there.
Yeah.
And so she's waiting. She is meeting with Winston for the very first time.
Jonathan Lithgow. So good. So it's a little bit of an awkward silence at first.
She doesn't really know how it works.
Yeah, she forgets or doesn't. Yeah, you're right. She doesn't know.
So she holds out her hand finally, and they kind of get on with it.
The formalities. Yeah. She's so pragmatic. So Winston Churchill is giving his condolences to Elizabeth, and
you can see the tears welling up in his eyes because he is a crybaby.
Oh, that's so mean.
But apparently it was rooted in truth.
I guess so. They had letters from him, yeah.
So Queen Elizabeth is like, I've offered, I've ordered some tea for us, but if you would like something stronger, like I can have, our people get that. And Winston's like, oh, no one's explained to you that like you don't offer people drinks. We're not allowed to sit around you. Like you sit there and listen to us tell you what's going on.
Yeah, it was the tradition because it's supposed to keep a counselor's, I guess, statements brief.
Yeah.
And to keep the business moving.
And that was a like a personal preference of Winston's for sure, because he was all about like, let's get in, get out, be done with this.
Damn thing.
Yeah.
To take it from The Bachelor.
He didn't think that there was any problem so complex that it couldn't be solved within about 20 minutes of good discussion. And so we cut to Philip is talking to his uncle about keeping the name Mountbatten and how important it is to Lord Mountbatten that the royal house now is named Mountbatten.
You know what's so interesting? If anybody watches House of the Dragon, very strange reference here, but there's a character who has a very similar attitude towards it's not blood that history remembers. It's names.
It's the name.
Lord Corlys, House of the Dragon. I see Mountbatten in him.
So we're back to the Queen talking with Winston, and basically Winston's like, so you were going to have your coronation in about like 16 months? And she goes, wait a minute, my dad did it in 5.
Yeah.
And you're saying like he had enough preparation, so why can't I do it?
Right.
And Winston's like, it's all about you. Like, it's definitely so that you can do this. Mm-hmm. It's not so that I can stay in office for longer. It's not so that I can hold your hand the whole time through the next election.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the meeting, he walks out, and basically she's like, Philip's asking how it went, and she's like, I couldn't get a word in edgewise.
It didn't even come up.
None of these things came up because he had his own agenda.
You're right. Yeah, it wasn't really so much come and talk to about what I want. It's Winston came and had like a whole laundry list.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess, I mean, I can imagine if it was my first time and the prime minister came super prepared and he'd done this before, it'd be a little hard, I think, to get a word in.
I would have kind of lost my nerve a little bit too.
Yeah, she's known to keep it together.
Yeah. She's kind of a little confused at the end of the meeting too, because it's the first one that she's had. And Philip's like, you could have just butted in. And she's like, no, not in a private audience. And then she kind of goes, why would he do that? And Philip's like, what are you talking about? And she goes, well, why would he want to delay the coronation? Which, I mean, by over a year. Like,
yeah, that's a long difference.
Time. And Philip barely registers what she's said, and then she drives away. Yeah.
Oh, Peter Townsend.
Oh, we love Peter Townsend.
I know.
Group Captain Peter Townsend.
Group Captain Peter Townsend.
All the women are in, their grieving clothes, and they're visiting with
Duke of Windsor.
Duke of Windsor. Did we get his first name?
Edward.
Edward?
It is truly Edward.
Okay. And Cookie is not happy.
She's got the stankiest face.
Oh my God.
Margaret seems pretty just nonchalant.
Yeah. She was, I think, too young to really remember like the importance of this kind of what Cookie always saw was a betrayal of trust.
Yeah.
She always thought that he betrayed her, whereas Margaret was like,
well, eventually she kind of understands in a weird way.
We will get that to that. Yeah.
But in this meeting, Edward is kind of doing, let's come together in our grieving.
Yeah.
But he also starts to open up this conversation. Oh, wait a minute. Well, I guess he wanted to talk more, but they are all the ladies get up because they're called. They have to go now. Mm-hmm. And so he's kind of like, what, so soon? And they're like, no, we got shit to do. And Cookie's just giving him a cold, dead stare.
Oh, yeah.
And Edward has to leave.
Man, he would have been burning to ash.
Yeah. So he kind of has to walk out unfulfilled, not able to really talk and kind of, I don't know, connect with them.
So Edward walks out and he looks at Peter, and he's like, with this family, when you're in, you're never really sure if you're in. But when you're out, you know it.
Yeah. That's so hard. That's your family.
And Margaret's actually trying to kind of market for Edward a little bit. He's like, it's been a really long time, and he was always really close with his brother, like with our dad. And Cookie's like, nah, fuck that.
No.
We're gonna be so angry with him forever.
On
He's
the burden
done nothing for
to
this
my
family.
husband, who now is dead.
Exactly.
Yeah, way too young. So she's kind of letting Cookie is letting Margaret and Elizabeth know, like, you were too young. Yeah. Both of you. But this is what he did to our family.
Yeah, it nearly destroyed the royal family and the monarchy when it happened.
Yeah.
And she's like, and don't think of this action here as a selfless action. He's here to make sure that he's going to continue to get his allowance, and that his brother had set up for him. Now that you're queen, you can cut that off.
Right.
But he's here to basically make sure that he gets paid, because they're expecting to still be spoiled by, the riches of royal life.
Yeah, which was, I figured that's what I was thinking that conversation would have gone, is that if it had continued, he probably would have opened it up, and I would not put it past Cookie to have told Peter to cut that conversation off. Maybe she told Tommy to call them out.
No, I think
they really had somewhere to go.
They just had some. I mean, obviously, also this is dramatized.
Yes, it is dramatized. I know.
It's not necessarily what actually happened, but if he's as wily as they say he is, then he's going to wait for the opportune moment. He's not going to sit in on first meeting and then be like, by the way,
I'm also going to need to keep that allowance going.
You know that money that your brother promised me? I'm just going to keep needing
my brother, not your brother, because you married him.
Oh, yeah, sorry. My brother.
I see exactly where she's coming from. I guess I just keep coming from a totally different commoner standpoint, which is your family. And because, I grew up in a time where divorce was not, so like looked down upon, I am having a hard time relating to her anger in this moment. But I guess when I think about it from her perspective, I don't know, man. I still couldn't go as hard as Cookie does. Like I said, ride or die, bitch.
She knows how to hold a grudge.
Ride or die.
And she didn't want to be queen.
No, she did not.
She didn't marry the man who would be king.
Nah, she married his brother. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to find out in a little bit of a reading. We're going to have a letter here from former King Edward, Duke of Windsor, to his wife, Wallis Simpson.
Is that what her name is Wallis?
Wallis. Yeah, okay. Wallis Simpson. He hates London, by the way. He fucking hates this place.
Basically, he's saying, like, oh my God, I
what
miss
a frozen
Paris
hell this place is.
So much. It is a horrible, cold, and
I have a cold, thin-lipped,
dumpy and plain people.
Joyless, loveless family.
And loveless family.
Ooh.
The way Cookie treated me, looking down at me from her dumpy nose, was as much as I could do not to let her have it with both barrels.
Jesus. Shirley Temple.
So basically he writes to his wife, and he's like, now that Queen Elizabeth can silence her mom, she doesn't have the brain to do so.
Yeah,
and she's still going to let Cookie just walk all over her.
Yeah.
And is also admitting to the fact that he is trying to get paid.
Trying to get money.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. It was absolutely no question. He is here to get that allowance.
She gave them a heads up, like, don't be fooled. And sure the fuck enough,
and
there was something there.
And yet Cookie right there is right.
Yeah.
Because these were taken, I think, from his private letters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, he was definitely a writer letter. Did you know, before we keep going, did you know that he, in his young days, like he was like 19, 18, something like that, and he had a courtesan, basically a sex worker who was, really famous for her work. He fell absolutely head over heels in love with her, and people set her up with him so that he could kind of like get some experience
Yeah.
Before he like became king and got married. And it turns out that eventually later on, those letters came back to haunt him because he said some really stupid things, war secrets, like, oh man, this man he had a heart.
It was a good thing that he didn't stay king. He did not have the fortitude
he was led by his heart
for the position.
Yeah, he was a sensitive, like, romantic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, it is a good thing that he was not the king during those wars, because Wallace Simpson also had some questionable ties.
Yeah.
But nothing was ever fully proven that I know of.
So it's very sad. Later. It's a very sad viewing funeral thing, and Cookie is devastated.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously.
We've finished this letter. Basically, is like, I can't wait until I'm back at home.
Yeah, I'm tired of. I can't wait.
But we go back to this family who is still so sad to see their father gone.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to bury their dad.
No,
it's just bad.
No,
nobody with a happy relationship with their dad wants to bury them.
True.
And I'm not gonna fault the people who didn't have good relationships with their parents.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Your situation's your situation.
Maybe you're happy your dad's dead.
Maybe.
That's fine.
We moved on now to a bunch of the aristocratic men doing a shooting, a hunt, essentially. I want to say a pheasant hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're seeing Lord Mountbatten speaking to somebody about a new gun that they are...
He's talking to a man of German descent with a German accent, and he's basically upset about the Nazi rifle being better than his own rifle, and so he calls the German a cheat.
Yeah, and all it is the guy has a pump action shotgun.
Yeah, literally, that's it. But so this is like symbolically like the day after the funeral.
Yeah,
and Lord Mountbatten has all of these people over for this big pheasant hunt and this big meal, and he's having a toast, and he basically, like, someone else in the party comes up and he gives a toast to Lord Mountbatten and the fact that now Lord Mountbatten is the royal house of the Commonwealth, basically.
Yeah, I forget how they word it.
Big deal. Yeah,
it's a very, he's toasting essentially to.
Let us start with a toast. Here we go.
Yes, here it is. Here's the toast.
So
they start with
Lord Mountbatten starts a toast with the late Majesty the King and the Queen that succeeds him. Mm-hmm. They cheers, and then someone else says, to the generous host and the royal house that is now in his name.
There's the blasphemy.
To the royal house Mountbatten.
And he drinks along with a big old dramatic cinematic smirk.
This German that has just been called a cheat for having a pump action is hearing this, and he's like, this doesn't sound quite
He's just
right.
like, I know a very...
sounds really weird.
Like, what is it called? Not libelous, but...
Slanderous,
yes. A slanderous statement when I hear one.
Well, it's also very irreverent. Like, you don't move in on a title right the fuck away.
Yeah.
But that seems like they were literally toasting his his new status of the royal house.
Before anything is set.
Yeah.
So now we're looking in on Philip playing with Charles, trying to teach him to kick a ball. And Charles is not exactly living up to his father's expectations. So Philip is getting a little frustrated. And his buddy comes up, his, like, frat bro in crime. And now they're kind of talking about man stuff, as they would consider it back then. But basically, Philip is telling him, you know what? I'd really like to fly. I want to learn how to fly. And his friend's like, yeah, I think I can help you with that.
Yeah.
And now his friend encourages Charles to kick a ball at his dad.
Love that.
And they're being playful now, and it's very cute. And Elizabeth looks on from inside.
You can tell the way that she looks at Philip. She only has eyes for him. She absolutely adores her husband.
Oh, yeah. And in this moment, it almost looks, I mean, he's looking back at her now, and they're just kind of smiling.
They're very flirtatious. They clearly like each other.
They do.
Have cute little...
She's inviting him upstairs.
They have cute little moments, and, you know... their eye play. They eye fucking
play.
real hard.
There's eye play. They're in a very
lot
happy...
of eye play. But because they're British, you know, that's a lot of emotion there.
I know.
They eye
play. Oh, it's like they're going to hell.
I know, right?
But now Elizabeth goes back to her work. She opens her box and does exactly what her dad suggested. She flips everything over so that she starts at the bottom with all the stuff they don't want you to see.
She's looking through things and trying to figure out what it is that she's looking at and what she needs to pay attention to. Now we're back to Edward complaining to his mom that he can't even bring his own mom. Or his own
wife.
Sorry, my brain.
I mean, I know he has mommy issues.
Are so difficult. Anyway, so he can't even bring his own wife to this funeral, and like just the very, you know, it's insulting. But then he starts complaining about the allowance.
Yeah, and so he's essentially trying to talk to his mother about the terms of the allowance and essentially why it should continue.
Yeah, he's like, it was supposed to be for my whole life, not for his whole life.
Yeah,
and Cookie's trying to take that away.
Yeah. And so...
And she looks like a cook.
Oh, that's why he calls her Cookie.
He doesn't call her Cookie because she's as dumb as a cookie. It's because she's fat, common, and looks like a cook.
Yes, so that's why they call her Cookie. I'm thinking Chips Ahoy.
Oh my God. Cookie.
I never picked up on that before. That is the first time I've listened to this conversation fully.
Amazing.
Wow. Yeah, and so basically the mom's backing her up, going, don't call her that.
Oh, fuck, that's funny. Anyway, basically is like, it's mean to keep me without my life of luxury.
Yeah, I was the king at one point, and now I'm sitting here begging.
We barely make ends meet.
Exactly.
And Queen Mary's like, you're living in a castle, okay? Like, you're fine.
Yeah, and now she's comparing him to his brother,
King
saying,
George
look,
was frugal.
He was frugal. You could do the same.
I told you.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, it's King Edward who calls him the foundling. God, yeah, they're such dicks to each other.
I'd call him by his name if he had one.
Rude.
So the German that was at this meal by Lord Mountbatten.
Oh, that's right.
Comes and he wants to talk to Queen Mary.
Because he has something that he needs to tell them.
I fucking love the walls of this palace. Like, the maximalism is just...
The maximalism is so real beautiful. With these people.
I know. So he comes in and he's very he's very like worked up, and basically he's like, hey, I came right here. I needed to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
And she's like, tell me you weren't out shooting pheasants the day after my son's funeral. And he's like, it was all respectful, right? And she's trying to be forgiving. They get into the food, and basically he's like, all right, but here's the point, is that there was this toast to the royal house Mountbatten. And
he's speaking to her in German.
Oh yeah, they're having a full-on conversation.
A full German conversation. Now he's back in English.
And he goes, so after dinner, the host started to brag about how the royal house would soon be in his name.
Nonsense.
And she's like, well, the royal warrant established the House of Windsor. And he's like, well, technically it only is carried by the male heirs and not the women who marry their husbands.
Yeah.
And so if she would take the name Mountbatten, it would be Mountbatten.
Yeah.
And Edward's like, it would be Mountbatten. And there's just kind of this, oh fuck moment.
She's like, what did you put in those glasses? And he... said champagne, and she goes, you drank champagne the day after my son was laid to rest.
You bitch.
Yeah. I mean, you came with the juicy details, but you don't look so good either.
Yeah, no.
He probably didn't realize. So now we've come into a scene with Margaret walking down the halls, and now she's knocking on a door. And we hear Peter Townsend's voice from the other side telling her to come in. He did not, I think, realize. Oh, he called her.
He called her.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
What is this about? So she closes the door.
So he has some news for Margaret. She comes in and he hands her a letter, and he said, I found this on my kitchen table last night. And she opens it up, and it is a letter from his wife, and she has left him they're getting divorced. And it is a big deal because that means that now he's single and they can get married. Theoretically. But all of her belongings are gone. Everything's gone.
She says, so
she's like, I'm so sorry. And he goes, are you? And she goes, no. Nope. Because they're so happy that now they can be together.
Oh, he looks her up and down.
Oh, yeah. And they don't have to hide themselves
Not as
anymore.
much. But, I mean, how did she not think this through ahead of time?
Because she's so young, okay?
I guess, but you would still be aware.
This is happening while she's in her early 20s, like 22, 23.
But, I mean, she should still know that the abdication was wholly hinged on the fact that this woman had divorces and her exes were alive, and that was a huge reason.
You can't help who you love.
I guess so.
So
he's saying he really can't get a divorce. They just have to stay separated.
Yeah, so they're not divorcing, they're separating. And he's like, but I can't get divorced because then I'd be a divorcee. I couldn't work here anymore,
Which is so stupid.
It's like a military thing, I think.
I don't get that. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't. There's a whole thing. So he would be divorced. He would be able to remarry, and that's all she cares about. But his status as a divorcee would make it so that he couldn't ever work, I think, for the palace again or for the military or something. But I think it was like whatever his status had to do, like he couldn't be divorced.
What's the correlation between divorcee
it's a whole
and
religious thing.
Unemployable? Like why?
I think working for the castle or the or for Queen's military
She's the head
or whatever.
Of the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
or Catholic Church, the Church of England.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
It is a very Catholic role too. If you get divorced,
yeah. We'll go into it. I don't think it goes into it this episode, but it goes into it here in a bit. There's the spoiler alert, obviously, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
There's a reason that we're setting this up and learning about Edward at the same time we're learning about Margaret and their respective love affairs.
True.
And she's like, you don't have to, do this now, but maybe like if you got divorced, that means you could remarry one day.
Yeah, it's true. Planting the seed in his mind.
And that's what she cares about because she loves him.
But while they're having this discussion, someone's coming.
Yep.
And so she's got to hide. Where does she hide? In the
Behind
closet.
The curtain. But then she also leaves her little handbag there.
I know. It's a cute handbag, by the way.
It is a very cute handbag.
Who is it that's coming? It is
Prince
Philip and his friend Mark.
I don't fucking know what his name
remember
is.
his name. We find out his name later.
We'll figure it out.
The curtain.
Literally where she's standing. And then there's also a frame next to it says that is a plane. And Philip has decided that he is the head of the Royal Air Force, but he doesn't know how to fly a fucking plane.
Yeah.
So he wants to learn to be a pilot.
How practical.
And so he goes to Group Captain
Peter Townsend.
Peter Townsend. And he's like, can you help me learn? And he's like, well, duh. And so
absolutely.
He offers his services as a pilot to teach him how to fly.
Ugh, gotta love it. Pretend they could be future brother-in-laws.
He's just putting in a good word. Mm-hmm. That all of that's still secret, but he's laying the groundwork. But he's also worked for King George for a very long time, so it's a very trusted position that he's in. And he's like, yeah, I'm good at that. Of course, I can help teach you.
Of course.
Just as a favor, like it doesn't even have to be anything official. I can just help you because I can help you. Oh yeah, you're talking. So Philip decides he wants to talk about his family.
Yeah, well, I forget how, but I think it's like
it's something about his sister losing a child. His sister lost a child during a plane crash.
Well, she gave birth to the child during the plane crash, but the plane crashed and everyone died.
And everyone died. Yeah, it was like devastating.
And
Townsend is basically saying like it is one of
flying
is heaven on earth.
Yeah. And so they shake on it. And you're right. Out of left field, Peter, Philip brings up the story of his sister. Yeah, out of left field. But I guess she was 8 months pregnant. Damn.
So it turns out that he was like an uncle. She gives birth to this boy.
It was his
But
favorite
they found him in the wreckage, and it was just very upsetting.
Of course. He has a little bit of a tragic history.
Kind of opens a little emotional thing, but then he spots the purse and he's like,
"Uh-oh,
who you fucking,
you
man?
dirty dog? Who's that?"
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, is it a new part of your uniform?"
Yeah.
And he's like, and then Philip's like, "You fucking dirty dog, is it anyone we know?" And Peter Townsend's like,
no
so they
comment.
just move on. Philip's like, all right, whatever,
shy.
it doesn't matter, bye.
They just start giggling down the hallway like it's fucking middle school.
I mean, it is fucking middle school, like, he's fucking somebody.
They are seeing each other
it's
every
important,
day.
like, he's fucking someone important enough where we shouldn't know who it is.
And she's like, "I'm so sorry." She comes out from behind the Margaret.
So
comes
Peter's like, "Oh, are you enjoying this?" And she's like, "Yeah,
a little bit.
I am a little bit.
I would. I want to embarrass you. That'd be hilarious." Jacques. All right, so we've moved on to Tommy Lassell and Queen Grandmama Mary, and they've brought in who was that man?
Jacques.
And do we know what he does and what that was for?
I think he has to do with the government. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not going to make assumptions. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter because Churchill shows up and everybody goes, "Woo!"
So Churchill is talking to the Queen about, like, all right, so I heard that they wanted to take the name Mountbatten. Oh, yeah, he does have to do with the government. So Jacques talks to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister comes to try and fix the problem. And he's like, you
can't do
that. You've got to be Windsor. Yeah, you can't take the name Mountbatten because that's a bunch of other kingdoms' names.
Yeah. Levy goes, "I am an old man."
So basically, he's like, "Look, I don't have a lot of time left on this earth. I'm old. I shouldn't be in office anymore. People are questioning my abilities all the time. But at the same time, they're wondering if I'm relevant, but I'm saying I am because I need to be able to leave you prepared to be the queen that you need to be. And I need that time to be able to train you properly." And she's like, "All right, I get that, but I also am a woman who's married to a husband who insists on me taking his name,
and that is tradition for
which is also tradition for women
at the time.
My kingdom, also in my family, and like, so you can't ask me to take one tradition and then break another. Like, come on."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Well, I can discuss it with
flex
Cabinet
a little.
and see if I can, like, what I can do." And she goes, No. You are going to tell Cabinet
that's my decision.
That is what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And you're going to do that because I'm doing you a favor. You are irrelevant. You are old. I know that people want you to be replaced. I know your party wants you to resign in a way for younger men.
Well, she knows the party does, yeah.
She also knows that no one's going to bring up the resignation while he's training her, and so that's the reason.
That's why you gave me that deadline.
Long. He's holding on to power because he's training her, and the longer he trains her, the longer he holds on to power.
Right.
And by her allowing him to set that kind of deadline, it means that she kind of owes him. This is another moment we're seeing of, like, she's more observant
she's
and
adept
wily
and observant. Yes, exactly.
Than people give her credit for.
And that's the thing that people thought of her, that she's just as plain, kind of simple.
But here's the thing. She also is insisting that they're going to stay at Claret's house because he spent so much time and money refurbishing the house.
Yes, he did.
Spoiler, she doesn't get her way on either one of these things. So we're seeing this moment of great strength, but also it comes to nothing.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter. They're going to tell her what she's going to do, and she's got to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And Winston basically, he's like, whatever.
Yeah, the queen doesn't get to just do whatever she wants.
She's not going to get her way, so I'll just say whatever and go on.
Yeah.
So he leaves, and they kind of move on from the moment.
All right, so we come into Elizabeth filling Philip in on her meeting with Churchill, and kind of told him, I stood my ground. I think my father was a little bit more like putty in his hands, and I don't think he was expecting that. And Philip's like, good on you.
And she's like, well, actually good for you, because that means that you're going to get your way.
That is true, too. All right, so we come in now on a scene, and it is the Duke of Windsor. He's, I think, getting ready to board his boat home.
No.
No?
He's, at 10...
Oh, is he at 10 Downing Street?
I think.
Oh, you're right. That's right.
Yeah. So he has a meal with Edward, and he's like, look, she had both of these weird requests, and obviously the answer is no. I need you to tell her this. I need you to tell her that she's not going to get her way.
Yeah.
And he's like, I get it. I completely understand, so I will talk to her.
Yeah. I think it's because Edward has that knowledge that only other monarchs really can understand.
Exactly.
And he had all of those constitution lessons that they all go through. And
he's basically saying, I will do you this favor because you were very supportive while I was going through my resignation or my abdication.
I also have another request. Not me. Him. The Duke.
Yeah, so the Duke is like, hey, while we're on the topic of doing favors,
if I'm scratching your back,
can you make sure that I get my allowance?
Yeah, you got to make sure that keeps going, if not gets increased.
Papa
Maybe
gotta
wink,
get
wink.
paid, right?
Yeah, Papa got to eat. Papa got to pay for food for his pugs.
He does have his little pugs.
He loves his pugs.
Yes. So he's officially asking, he's like, look, I'd like the Queen to reinstate my allowance.
She's the only one who can.
So I'd like you to just kind of convince her that it's just, I only need 10,000 a year. It'll be quite impossible to make ends meet without it. That means they can live in a fucking castle for 10,000 a year.
Yeah. What a difference the prices are now. So now he's also asking for another favor to get cabinet support for something, which it would be... Oh, he wants to give his wife the appropriate title.
This is a no question.
Yeah, this is
this
was
Winston.
a step too
He's
far.
Like, absolutely not. 3 husbands. Yeah.
3 husbands that still live.
So Edward is... I'll also explain this a little bit more. So Edward is asking for his wife to be recognized as a member of the royal house. So a Duchess of Windsor.
Now she's just known as Wallis Simpson.
Fuck no.
She has 3 living husbands.
Yeah, she's got them. They're all still alive.
In America.
We're not going to do this. That's super against the rules.
Yeah.
And Edward's like, but I'm determined that she have that position.
Yeah.
I'm determined that she is shown respect, which is never going to happen, by the way.
No, but how hot is it that he keeps trying?
He keeps trying. He loves her so much that he gives up his title, his kingdom, his homeland, his family, and still he fights and fights and fights for the opportunity for her to be shown the respect he thinks she deserves.
Which is so interesting because, as we know later in the series, spoiler, there is Charles and Camilla. Mm-hmm. Also, by the time she married Charles, was a divorcee with a living husband.
I think one of the things, it's very interesting, and we're going to get into this a lot more, is the highlight of the concept of life after divorce.
Yeah.
Because that ruined so many lives. This show really highlights, it's ruined lives generation after generation after
There's a lot of generational trauma here.
Because of the concept of you cannot move on after divorce.
Yeah.
You get
as
one
long
and
as
done,
they're alive,
that's it.
Your post-divorce life is like celibacy in the eyes of the church.
Which is just
not at all feasible.
Maddening.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. It is going to be a repetitive theme that we see.
Oh, yeah.
And at least in the scope of this series, it starts with Edward and Wallis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we see a lot of parallels in this. Yeah, Churchill's not going to fight for this, though. It's just such a no-no.
So he's like, will you please do this for me, Winston? And Winston's like, this has cost you everything in your life, and you still want me to fight for it. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to happen. Why are you doing that? And he's like, love. Obviously.
Yeah, he was like the only one I think who believed in the power of love.
And then we kind of cut to like this beautiful little moment of him and his wife dancing in the sunlight in a beautiful ballroom.
Yeah.
Just a pure expression of passion and love for each other.
Writing her
through
letters.
The movement of dance in, just that whole scene is so romantic to me.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to him writing letters to her.
Thinking about her and smiling.
But like she's caressing his face and they're mid-movement and leaning into each other and just so clearly desirous.
Yeah.
Is that a word? Desirous?
Desirable.
No.
I guess. But we're also seeing another part of this scene where it's Margaret in a beautiful dress.
Margaret's sneaking through the halls.
I think she's approaching. Yeah, I think she's
sneaking through the halls. She's
going
to a certain spot.
Peter.
Oh, yes.
We're also seeing Philip and Elizabeth attending the opera.
Yes.
Or a show of some kind. I believe it's the opera.
It cuts in and out.
It does. We see a little bit of each.
Now Margaret's into the office.
She sneaks into his office.
She walks in and she plants a big old smooch on Peter Townsend. They have a really hot moment.
And then she's like, I gotta go.
Heavy. And then she walks away.
And then she just walks out. What a power move. What a power move.
And he is like catching his breath and she's just very proud of herself.
Oh, fuck yeah. I'd be proud of myself. That was awesome.
It was hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a moment.
I know. And now we go back to Elizabeth looking like tense somehow at the opera.
I think she's
just really into it.
I think there's moments where you just kind of, especially like the day that she had of the conversation she had.
I guess.
There's some moments where the weight of things hits you.
Maybe.
And I think Philip senses that tense moment and puts a hand on her thigh to help calm her down.
Is that what he's doing?
To comfort her.
He's trying to calm her down.
Look at his little smile. He kind of smirks at her.
Yeah, she smirks
a little back. And very clearly like, okay, and now things are going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts back to Edward and Wallace dancing and kissing.
Yeah.
Not actually. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
No, lips touch.
There was a moment, and then there was a little tense moment, and then they finally kissed. It was very romantic.
All right. Edward is now getting out of a cab, showing up to Buckingham Palace.
Where he's got to break the news that
to Elizabeth.
Elizabeth's not going to get her way on anything she wants about being queen. So they're having breakfast together. They're just kind of having some food.
A little bit of an informal family chat.
And Edward, Elizabeth's a lot more tolerant of Edward than Cookie was. And so she's listening to him talk about how life is with Wallace and how life is with their pugs. And she's like, oh, I love dogs. So she's asking about those. Oh, and then she has opinions about the pugs.
Yeah, she's not a big fan of the pug.
Yeah, she likes corgis, but she's like talking about, they've got strange barks and bad breath and they breathe weird.
Yep.
They're lazy. They spend all day sleeping. She's shit-talking these dogs.
And they're actually gassy.
He's like...
That's another one of her complaints.
He's like, yeah, all of those things, but also...
I love them for all of those things.
Yes, they're my dogs. And then Elizabeth kind of has a beat, and then she goes, do you ever miss it? And he goes,
yeah.
What? And she goes, do you miss home? Do you miss being a part of this family?
He's
do you
like,
miss being a part of this kingdom?
No, because they don't accept the woman I love, so...
Yeah.
Nope.
And she's like, it must have been really hard with the distance. And he goes, the distance was imposed on me. I didn't ask for any of that.
Oh, but then she brings up the nicknames. What about the nicknames?
Yeah. She calls him out. She's like, so Shirley Temple, is it on account of the curls? And he said... And the precociousness.
That's the nice way of putting
stardom.
it.
And she goes, you flatterer.
Yeah.
He goes, no. I mean it because this sovereignty is better than queens than kings.
That is true. Which is saying a lot because there's only been like a handful of queens.
But they've done it well. And she said, and I intend to do it well. So it's setting up this new expectation of performance.
Yeah.
So then she has a moment where she's like, you know what? You never apologized. And Edward's like, I did. I apologized to your dad. I apologized to your mom. And she goes, no. You didn't apologize to me.
Yeah.
And she's like, you don't think I'm deserving of an apology? But don't you think I would have preferred to grow up out of the spotlight? A simple country girl, just away from the social life, away from the titles.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Where I can just be a happy little housewife.
Right.
A wife, a mother.
Yeah, well, it's a little late. He says he's sorry, but it's a little late, I would say.
It is a little late, but the immediacy with which he...
I know. He didn't even think about him.
No, but that apology was genuine when he gave it immediately. It was, I didn't think about it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He owned it. So they kind of move on.
Yeah, they're like, all right, that's done.
And she says, if I'm going to be good at this queen thing, I'm going to need all the help that I can get. And he goes, well, you've got a great many counselors and, cabinet that's going to be really helpful. And she goes, yeah, but I'm going to need
none of them
someone like you.
Yeah, no, none of them have done the job.
And you've done the job.
Yeah.
You know what this means.
And he's surprised. He's a little surprised that she asks his advice.
Yeah.
It's kind of sweet.
She says, I would trust your opinion because you would always speak from the heart, because whatever you feel now, deep down, you care very deeply about this kingdom and you feel very deeply about everything.
Yeah, which I think he needed to hear. Yeah. Which I want to hug this man.
She still respects his opinion as someone who also knew the weight of the crown enough to know that he wasn't equipped to handle it.
Yes.
I think that also took a fair amount of guts.
Yeah.
To abdicate instead of just be an ineffectual leader.
Right. And so he takes this opportunity to give her the advice that he originally intended to give her anyway, is that instead of telling her the kingdoms, or not the kingdom, but the parliament and the PM said you can't, he's saying it's my advice that you do not pass on his surname and that you do live in Buckingham.
Yeah, he doesn't present it as you cannot do this. It's to respect the crown and to respect the tradition of that position.
Yeah.
You need to do these things in a way that respects that position.
And he can,
you have to live at the palace. You need to take this name. You need to do that in obligation of the crown, not out of a disrespect to your husband.
Well, I think he also, not so much as an obligation out of the crown, but he can also tell her in a way the reasons why, which I think helps someone to change their mind about something. Yeah. Because he said it earlier where he said that Buckingham Palace is the seat of, and it's the home of the monarch. It's not just where you go and do business. You are, this is your home. That is the tradition and the history, that this is the monarch's home. And that the name of Windsor, it's more than just the name. It was established for a reason. Their name, spoiler alert, wasn't always Windsor. And so they changed it at some point, and that it had meaning when they changed it. Yeah. And so that it needs to remain. Mountbatten has too many geopolitical connections outside of this. This is a strictly British name.
Right.
And so I think, while we didn't really see that whole conversation, I think that some of that is implied through his previous conversations he's had. Just a takeaway. All right. Now next, of course, she's going to, Elizabeth comes home to talk to Philip. And Philip, before hearing her say anything,
is like, I'm a be a pilot.
Yeah. He goes, I want to take flying lessons.
Yeah. He's like, it's been a lifelong dream, and I'm going to do it. And Peter's going to teach me.
I've made the decision. Let's see, Elizabeth, how does she feel about it? She's not even going to talk about it. She's got to talk about the big business.
So she's like, all right, we got to talk. They'd rather we didn't keep the name. He goes, who's they? And she's like, cabinet.
The men in suits.
And he's like, it's none of their business. And he goes, she's like, yeah, well, it is. It kind of is.
I love how he says...
has to ensure customs, and this is one of the customs.
But he says it's the law. And she's like, it's not the law.
No, it's a tradition. And he goes, a tradition that is so common that it might as well be the law. He's very upset, and it kind of is like if it's not a law, it's a tradition that's so common it should be a law. But then I'm going to be the only man in the country whose wife and children do not take his name. which basically is going to make me an ineffectual person. Like, it's very emasculating to him to know that his name is not going to be the name that is part of the royal.
Yeah. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, same, right?
You
Fucking
get... I mean, I understand that, like, machismo was all the rage at this time. But, like, it's just kind of like, but look at your position. Look where you are. Mm-hmm. Look, at what you can afford to give your children.
Yeah.
Look at all of this. But, of course, at this time, he's not totally wrong for the time. It was literally every woman that got married at this time. I mean, I challenge you, and maybe there are women out there who did, snub tradition. But, like... I doubt it's out there. I could be wrong. But, I mean, it is true. But I just bud. That's just my opinion. But Elizabeth has a good point right here. Oh, so I forgot. He calls his... Philip does call his uncle Dickie.
Yeah.
So that's Lord Mountbatten.
And he's like, Uncle Dickie's going to be devastated
because that's
by
a reason.
Yeah. Like, I promised him that would be the name.
Yeah. That's a mistake.
Him it's in the bag, and
so
she
that's
goes,
the mistake.
You shouldn't have promised him that.
You should not have. Why did you do that?
And she's like, well, not only that, but
I have worse news.
Buckingham Palace. She's like, we got to give up Clarence House, and he's like, fuck, come on.
All right, there we go. So now she has to break it to him because he put £70,000.
Yep. Of sovereign money. Come on.
I mean, that's a lot for a home renovation now. The price that probably was. I mean, if we were to inflate that for inflation.
But he lived in like a castle, so there's a lot of room to be updated and renovated.
I know.
I think they were probably putting electricity in there too, so it's probably...
It did seem like they were. You're right. They were testing wiring and stuff.
So I think they were putting electricity in there and updating it, which is also very expensive.
Yeah, which it seems like Buckingham already has.
Probably. I mean, they probably all did, and maybe they were updating it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get it. You put a lot of heart, soul, time, effort, money. I don't fault him for not being happy about this. This part, I'm not going wah wah. I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
I get it. Yeah. So he's asking who said that we have to do it. And she puts her foot down. She goes, me.
And he's like, you hate Buckingham Palace. And she's like, yeah, I do. But that's the overwhelming advice. That's what people are telling me to do, is the smart thing to do is to be at Buckingham Palace.
Yeah. And he's kind of coming back at her.
It's like, you don't have to do what other people are telling you to do.
You just act on it. You
don't have to act on the advice.
And it's almost like they're kind of having to learn what it means to be the top senior royals. Mm-hmm. And it's very unusual for this dynamic to be this way, where...
Well, she doesn't know how to lead, and she doesn't know how to make these decisions for herself, so she's very much relying on the advice of cabinet and council and Tommy Lascelles and people that she has been trained to trust to tell her these things for her.
And I don't blame her for that, because I would be leaning on that too.
She's not making her own decisions yet. She's relying on that advice of counsel. But she also doesn't know when to make an emotional, a decision for herself yet. Yeah. She hasn't been able to do that. She's being told how to make the decisions.
And more than anything, I think she's coming to him to have the discussion, which is at least something.
She's trying to bring it to him like, we're going to phrase it as a discussion, but really this is what's going to happen here.
Yeah, essentially. And he's just, I don't think he gets that. Yeah, when it comes to the government. You don't have to
listen to what people tell you. And she's like, when the government is the one that's telling you, you do.
When the government says so, got to be something to it, depending on the government, of course.
And he's like, fuck,
he's getting toxic now.
What kind of marriage and what kind of family is this? You took my career. You took my name. You took my home.
Mm-hmm. He's putting this all on her, which I think is just
He's like, I thought we were toxic. A team in this, and now you're taking over. Which, honestly, I think is bullshit, because literally those are such selfish things to want to keep. Your wife is the queen of bloody England.
Yeah.
You get to live in the lap of luxury forever and don't have to work another day in your life being, doing labor.
Problem is, he wants to do that.
I know.
That's the other thing, though. I mean, I I get the frustrations with the career. I get the frustrations with like having to move your home. But when it comes to the name, I know we're now seeing the scene where they're essentially moving into Buckingham Palace. We're seeing the kids, Charles and Anne. They're gorgeous and adorable. The casting was, oh my God, her
so
curls.
cute. I know. Look at those.
This little girl's curls, so good. So yes, and then now we are seeing.
Edward is getting back on a ship and he's going back home to Paris.
That's his exit.
And at the same time, we've got the Queen moving into Buckingham for the very first time.
Yeah, so a former monarch leaving, a new monarch coming in.
And go ahead.
Oh, Elizabeth is now giving the speech to to basically Parliament, saying, here's the house name. And that her descendants, other than female, which still has recently changed, Windsor. She says they're going to bear the name Windsor.
The female descendants will be Windsor until they get married, and then they take their husbands' names, which was what she was saying.
Yes.
But it's going to be Windsor, and Philip's standing there just kind of giving her an evil eye because he does not like this. He's not a happy boy. How he wanted things to go.
No. Pat. He's not happy. Yep, so they're just kind of going up the stairs, ascending to their new home where the apartments are. Mm-hmm. I believe. And apparently these are. I want to figure out how the department created this set. You know, because you know they didn't film in Buckingham Palace. I don't think they did.
I don't know.
But anyway,
that's the end of the episode.
That is the end of the episode.
They're literally climbing the stairs, ascending to their place, their new home in Buckingham Palace.
Yes.
As the Queen of merry old England.
Yep. And Philip has been put in his place in this particular matter. He got
in two particular matters.
3.
That he insisted on from the very beginning of the episode. He insisted that he get his house and his name, and he got neither, and he's pouting up the stairs with them.
Yeah.
And that's it for episode 3.
That's episode 3. Do we have any final thoughts? Anything looking back on the episode?
It really highlights this growing resentment in Philip that we're starting to see. We've started to see it grow a lot more in this episode as he doesn't get these 2 very important things that he wants, but he's upset. He kind of finally cracks at the end and he's like, what the fuck kind of life am I supposed to live if I can't get anything that I want?
Yeah.
And
I do.
We're going to start seeing this a lot more, is this attitude of like, well,
what am I supposed to do? You know, what am I supposed to, what's my purpose?
What we tell you to do as the royal family.
Yeah,
you signed up for this when you agreed to marry us.
He's not ready to buckle under yet.
Apparently not.
No. He's still a bucking bronco at this time.
He's going down in a blaze of glory.
I don't know this
Nothing?
song. Unfortunately, that one went over my head.
There's no British reference for that. You know, no. I can't just say, like, there's no British song where it's like, I'm going to go down fighting.
I'm sure there is.
There probably is. I just don't know.
Either that or I'm thinking of an Irish song. You know there's an Irish song for that.
Probably an Irish song.
They have had to go fighting and fighting and fighting. They're still fighting.
Anyway, this has been an episode of The Crownening. This was episode 3. And we will...
check you out for next episode.
Next time with
the next Act of God.
Yes.
Act of God.
Great episode.
Yes, I'm excited. I'll take some notes for next time.
Yes.
All right, peoples. Well, thank you so much for listening. At some point, I'll create an Instagram or a not a Facebook.
We'll just keep posting.
We'll figure it out
on the Well-Behaved Women thing.
Yes, but if not, follow us at Well-Behaved Women. That is where you'll get a lot of your updates for the Crownening at the moment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Love.